Welcome to Cuss N Discuss. I am Dr. Nicole Detling, and I am hosting today for the Global Horse Network. Here with me, we have your host who you all know and love, Steve Kutie. And we also have Paralympic and world champion archer, Lia Coryell. Let's give him a round of applause. Celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. Our topic today is mental toughness. Mental toughness. So, Steve, why did you want to talk about mental toughness today?
Because it's important, right? With all the horse biz showing lots of money on the line, you've got to be tough, right? Because millions of dollars are won and lost by fractions.
Okay. But we'll go into that more. Like, what do you mean what's the mental toughness piece have to do with that?
Because you're here, I need to help you, or you need to help me get out of my funk, right? Which is what we talked about, right? So the mental toughness part of it, because you've got to be able to, put your hand down and run hard and make all these little pieces come together. And as you know, I mean, if you're 9 out of 10, you're still not going to win, right?
Yeah,
You got to fire 10 out of 10. And sometimes there's just one little piece that you lose or you don't have, and it just kind of upsets the whole apple cart, and it's not even a big thing sometimes. So I figured, because we knew each other from way back in the day.
Way back
in the day.
Like when we were this high.
Yeah, like 30 years way back in the day. And, I mean, with you being a psychologist for the Olympic team, and I figured who better to ask than to help me get through my funk than the person who knows how to get through funk, right? You've already coached champions.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And as we're saying here now, I'm low man on the totem pole. I mean, we've got a case full of national champion jewelry. We've got world champion medals. I mean, right?
Show off your belt.
So now I feel
it's not like you're a nobody here.
Well,
there we go.
but,
There we go.
But,
we got a little something.
But I'm far inferior to those sitting at the table, right? So all I want to do is be able to, diagnose the problem, right, and talk everybody through, what we go through. I mean, and it doesn't make a difference if you're showing horses, right, or you're racing bicycles, or you're in archery, running, whatever it may be.
Yep.
Everybody's going to struggle with the same issues, and sometimes they're just going to crop up and bite you in the butt, right? So I think if you're not doing it to be competitive, it's never really an issue, right? Because you don't really care. But when you're doing it as a career, or you're getting paid, or a business, livelihood, whatever it may be, those little things start to make a big difference in the end, because...
There you go. In your performance. That's what you're talking about, is the performance, the mental strength to keep your performance at number one, right?
Right.
That's what I thought.
Well, I mean, we were talking earlier, and you said, you were off the podium a couple times, right? I mean, and you're still a loser. And I don't mean it as a bad thing, right? But you're still a loser because you're fourth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
made it to the bronze medal match in both the Paralympic, that I was in, Rio and Tokyo. And if I'm not on the podium, it doesn't count. They're like, oh, but you went to the Paralympics. Well,
right.
So did a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, it's that mental toughness. How do I get to that next step? And, it's only taken me 7 years to figure that out.
But you got there, that's what the point is. They don't give 10 for fourth?
No.
Nothing?
You get
Not
nothing.
even 10.
Not even
It's like first, last place. That's
Right.
what fourth feels like to me. First, last place. So
Right. Not even a pat on the back?
No, or the pity pat. Oh, but you went to the Paralympics. Or sometimes people say, you went to the Special Olympics. And I didn't.
Well.
Special Olympics and Paralympics are very, very different events.
And they both are very, very cool
Amazing.
organizations. But
Yes.
the Paralympics, we compete just like an able-bodied athlete. The only adaptation is in how we do our sport. And Special Olympics is for cognitive and intellectual challenges. And it's an amazing organization that I support 100% too, but they are very different things.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's a good distinction. I think that's important for people to know. So what Steve's talking about with this mental toughness piece, that's what I do. So I own a company called Headstrong Consulting, and we are a group of mental performance coaches. And if you think of anything mental that can impact your performance, confidence, composure, concentration, dealing with injuries, things like that. That's what we do, is we coach people on how to be more mentally tough. And I feel like we all know the concepts, and you're talking about, that difference, that 1% of when people are going to win versus the people who also competed, also participated.
Right.
You know, a big difference when you get to the highest level of anything that we're talking about. And when I say anything, I'm not just including sport as a performance, but if you think of anyone who's mastered their craft, whatever their performance may be, any performance whatsoever, the best of the best, one of the things that they do most consistently is they're able to show up 100% in those moments and be in those moments, and mentally they're exactly where they need to be for whatever situation occurs. So that doesn't mean that everything goes smoothly for them, but it means that a lot of times it's they have the skills to handle whatever it is. So their minds are in the right place at the right time. They're handling whatever adversity comes their way. And that's really what we're looking at with this idea of mental toughness. And the cool part, and Lia can attest to this, is that it can be trained. This isn't something you're born with. This is not something that you have it or you don't. Many people do develop it naturally through different circumstances they've had in their lives, but you can also deliberately train it. And that's what a lot of the best in the world do, is they deliberately train it. And that's what we do with my company. And I'm glad to be here and to be able to talk with you about this today.
You know, I appreciate you coming, right? I mean, one of the big things I say when we do a lot of clinics is that, horse showing is nothing but crisis management, right? Everybody is in some type of a train wreck. Okay, so if you ask the guy who won, he's going to say, of course, right? Because he's obligated to, right?
Yes.
It was a great run. You know, I love my horse. Everything was right on. But, in the back of his mind, he's thinking, well, this could have been a little bit better. We could have done things differently. And I think that becomes part of, being a champion or a winner, right? But them handling that situation where a lot of people can't, right? Because, you try to be prepared. And, there's lots of people and you want to have all your ducks in a row, right? But when one of them gets out of line, that can train wreck the whole program, right? So it's how do you find yourself being able to deal with that? And I've always tried to explain it like with what we're doing with the reiners or the cow horses, is say you got to run 2 big fast circles and you got to run 1 small slow. Okay, so if you lope off and you start on those big fast circles and that horse runs off and is not listening to you, you just have to push your hand forward and act like you asked for that to happen, right? And you try to run the wheels off of him and hope and pray that after 2 big fast circles, he's tired enough that he wants to slow down and you don't have to pull on him, right? But as soon as he lopes off and he gets too strong and you're pulling on him, you've already told the judge that I'm in a bad situation, right?
That's right.
So you just kind of have to act like it and go with the flow, right? And there's some that are really masters of it. And I think in the horse training world, we have guys that are trainers, and then you have guys that are showmen, and then you have guys that can kind of do both. So the showman is the guy who can put his hand up there and just show the horse, right? Good or bad, whatever it may be, right? The trainer is going to be the guy that wants to nitpick it and fix all these things because in his mind, it always has to be perfect, right? That horse has to look in. That horse has to be in these certain positions all the time. So that messes him up mentally because that horse isn't in that position. Where the showman doesn't necessarily care because if that horse is leaning in or whatever, he's showing his horse.
Right.
And, it's very hard to switch those things off. And I think sometimes it becomes personality. But sometimes I think it can also be, like you say, training. I mean, it's training like on how you deal with those,
It's a toolbox. That's what I've learned from Nicole. She's my performance coach, is having that toolbox. So when something doesn't go straight, kind of goes a little sideways, how you think about it, even how you think about it is going to change what you do physically.
Exactly.
So, if I'm trying to shoot for a 10 and I shoot a 6, how do I come back from that without thinking, the next shot, don't shoot a 6? Because I'll guarantee you, if I'm thinking that, I'm going to shoot a 6.
For sure.
So, what goes in that toolbox, and that's what a performance coach does is, okay, well, what are you thinking? What are you doing? What's your next plan to get past that?
Yeah. And I'll give you some specific how-tos. That's something that I'm really big on is, we have this conceptually, we all know what to do, but we don't know how to do it, right? So that, okay, pretend that's what you meant to happen and you're going to be okay. Okay, that sounds great, but how do you do that? Right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I come in, is that how-to and what Lia's talking about. And so some of the strategies for that, seriously, and you'll have to help me out a little bit within the horse world because I'm sure I'm not going to use the proper terminology and you can help me, we can play around a little bit here. But essentially, if we start with always have a plan B, always have a plan B. And I don't even care what performance we're talking about, but everybody expects to train in whatever way they're training and to show up to competition day or show day or whatever it might be, and that things are just going to work out. How many times does that actually work in anything that you ever do, that it goes exactly according to plan?
Right.
Very, very few.
Right.
That's what we hope for when we train, but that's not reality. Reality usually is something different happens. And when we're talking about horses as well, you have a whole other element involved, and the horse has its own brain and its own desires, and no matter how well that horse has been trained, that doesn't mean that horse is going to do what you want it to do when it comes time. Right. And so you've got something else that you have to work with there that you don't have complete control over. Even though you've trained that, you don't have complete, because the horse still has a mind of its own. So plan A is you train, you show up, and everything works. Awesome. How many times has that worked for you?
Not likely.
Yeah, right.
It is crisis management.
It is crisis management. So plan B. Think about what's the most likely thing that wouldn't work out according to plan. So you know your horse, you know what you're doing. What's the most likely thing that could happen? Okay, and then you pull up your if this happens, then I will plan. So if then. So if the horse does, give me an example. Like
just say scotches on his rundown.
Okay, and what the heck does that mean?
So in the reining world, right? I mean, your horse is running down to do the sliding stop.
Okay.
They know when they run down, they got to stop at the end of the arena. So they'll try to start stopping early.
Yes. That's scotching?
Scotching.
Why scotching?
Like hopscotch?
Good question. If you,
Hopscotch?
if any of you guys know the answer to that question, put it in the comments below, because I have no idea why it's called scotching.
See, I love learning like what's the origination of some of these words in all the different sports. So I want to hear that. Okay, so if the horse wants to stop early,
correct.
That's okay. So that's a great if-then scenario. So if you know that your horse has a tendency to do that, what is the plan? And is the plan to give me some examples of things that you would do if your horse was scotching? Did I say it correctly?
I could have made an easier subject to say, right?
Yeah, right.
But I mean, so you got to make sure he runs to the fence, right? So he's going to run long all the time, right? And you're going to try to not stop him in those places, because in the reining arena, there's going to be 3 markers, right? And you're going to have to go past a marker to stop, okay? So if you don't, you get a 0. So that's a big, you win
0.
nothing, right? So you have to figure those things out, right? So you try to do the homework prior too. But here's where the interesting thing happens for what else? I mean, if you're shooting, you have right? And then you probably have weather.
Yes.
It's going to affect that.
And the arrows.
Yeah. So when you're doing the horses, you've got the horse, right? But those horses have been shown. So when you train them at home, like you're going to handle them more, right? So you can do more things, right? When you go to the show, you put your hand down, and now you're trusting that your training is going to work on these horses, okay? So now that horse can take advantage of you because he knows he's not going to get schooled in that arena, right? So that was what makes it really hard, right? So it's a frustrating thing, because those horses know that when they run down to the end, that they're going to have to stop.
Right.
It's going to be on one end or the other.
Yeah.
Right.
So with that scenario, then I would say obviously your if-then plan is going to be, what are you doing with the horse? But I would take it one layer deeper, like peeling back the layers of that onion, take it one layer deeper, and also say, what are you going to do with you? How are you going to not respond in some kind of a panic way, in kind of an oh crap kind of way? So you are handling that adversity yourself, because the horse can also feel your energy and what you're doing, what you're putting out there, and that's going to influence that relationship and communication as well. So how are you training yourself to handle that with composure? And if we're talking about that composure, then it also has to come back into your training sessions at home. So you're talking about being able to handle your horse a lot more at home and things like that. And that's awesome. But you also have to train in the way that you plan to show and the way you plan to compete.
And I think, right, where a lot of that comes to where you get better, right, is show crappy horses, right? And be in those situations so you know how to handle it. I had a client tell me one time, he said, look, you'll never be able to show a finished horse because you had to show ones that had issues for so many years that, like, if you put your hand down and all the stuff works, he's like, you won't know what to do, right? Because you're not having to do it, right? So, I mean, is there validity to it?
Maybe.
I don't know, but
Maybe.
it makes you, it does make you wonder.
Yeah. But I also want to take it back to like we were talking about with mindset and what are you thinking about and how are you planning and things like that too. And if you're planning for the mistakes, you're planning for the horse to make these different moves and actions and doing things that it's not supposed to be doing, then you are training that. You're getting reps in that. And so think of the way that you are training as repetitions of the horse not doing what it's supposed to be doing and you handling it that way. So you always have that mindset of the show and this is how I'll handle it. And then you go back to, gosh, I've done that 100 times with this horse, so I can do it in this arena as well.
Right.
Is it ideal? No. Is it what you want to happen? Right. No. But mental toughness is all about being able to make it work when it's not working the way you want it to work.
Right.
Right? And you probably have great examples.
I do, because I could never close the deal. 4th place in 2 Paralympic teams. I realized in practicing for world champions that there's usually a coach behind. So when you shoot the target, he'll call it 3 o'clock 10, 2 o'clock 4. I said, if it's outside the 8 ring, I don't want to know. Don't say anything. He's like, you don't want to know where it went? No, because in my mind, it's a 10.
Right.
So people are like, yeah, but you still hear the silence. But if he yells, it's a 3 at 2 o'clock, I'm thinking 3 at 2 o'clock. So I made that decision and I got some flack on it. Yeah. You don't want to say anything. No, I don't want you to say anything. But I knew that was going to be my plan B.
Right.
And obviously it worked.
One of the most disheartening things, and I know neither of you two have shown horses, right? But the thing is like if you've got the stands are full and everybody's cheering and they're on your side and your horse makes a bobble, the people are so educated now that they know if that horse changed leads late or you made a mistake, like everybody's, and then nobody says anything, right? So now you're in the middle and you're in a 3.5 minute run and you messed up and now you got another 1.5 minutes with nobody saying anything.
Yes.
And you're right, it can be the loneliest place in the world because, you went from here to here, right? So it's not only bad enough that you screwed up,
yes,
but 5,000 other people
and
know you screwed up. Yeah.
But you can train that compartmentalization too. You can train yourself not to be influenced by what you're hearing. You can train yourself to be so focused in this moment. This is going to be a great story here in a minute. Okay. She's laughing because she knows what I'm going to ask her to say. But you can be so focused and in that process in the moment that this doesn't even matter. You might hear it, you might not hear it, but there's no influence. And there are skills and there are ways to train that being in the moment that will allow you to do that. And you've got to tell this story because this is an incredible story. And after she tells it, you guys have to go look this up because it's phenomenal. We know you can find it on Facebook. It's got to be on YouTube somewhere.
Okay. Yes. And we'll try to put the link in the description.
And since we have that clip now, I'll post it on YouTube and I'll tag you on it so you can find it. It's like a 2-minute video and it's worth it, especially when you hear this.
It has 30 million views.
Yes.
This is my 15
on Facebook.
Seconds. Okay. So when I shot in the gold medal match, my focus was on a mantra that I stay in my head so that I don't hear them, either or calling out numbers or whatever. I had no idea even though down there at my target, the score is at the bottom, I couldn't have told you who was behind me shooting because I wasn't looking at her target either. All I was saying was my thing in my head. So I shoot an 8, a 10, another 10, and I'm not looking there, I'm not listening to this, and I'm like this, and all of a sudden the young coach that was loading my arrows onto oh my gosh, Lia, I think you just won the world championships. And I like, no, John, no, we got 3 more arrows. He's like, no, I'm pretty sure. I said, no, we go. So he goes like, okay. Finally, the head coach comes around and kneels down and goes, listen, you guys, Lia, you're world champion. And I went, me? Now? Me? He's like, you just won the gold medal. I had no idea because I didn't hear anything.
Right.
And I didn't see what I want. I didn't look at the target. Didn't matter where those arrows were because guess what? They're already shot.
Right.
Even if they'd been all 3s, they were already done. There's nothing I can influence on that except what was in my quiver. And you could see me make that connection is like, oh no, we have more to do.
Right.
And I actually convinced the poor coach.
Yeah, right.
He said he's never going to get a job. He's like, Lia, he's from West Virginia. I'm never going to get a job. I'm the damn coach. Right. I didn't even know how many arrows you shot. So, yeah.
So my question is, if you still had 3 arrows, did you just shoot them to rub salt in the wound?
I didn't know I was winning.
She didn't have 3 arrows.
Oh,
left.
I thought. Oh, I
No,
got you.
she thought she still had to shoot 3 more
Oh,
arrows.
oh,
Yeah,
gotcha.
she was done shooting all of her
Oh,
arrows.
oh,
and
okay.
she
I
was
didn't
gotcha.
know that.
so
Oh, gotcha. I thought you meant you won it and you had 3 arrows left.
No,
Oh.
no. So she was so focused in that process, in
Yeah,
the
right.
moment. The crowd's going crazy. We all knew up in the
I didn't
crowd,
hear
and
anything.
we are going like just crazy up there. She is so focused. She didn't hear the crowd. She wasn't paying attention
I wasn't looking
to
down range.
how many arrows she'd already shot. Her focus was one arrow at a time. This arrow, and then this arrow, and then this arrow.
So every arrow, that's, a mental toughness, at least in archery. Every arrow has an intention. Otherwise, you're just slinging pointy sticks. And I would imagine that would be in practicing too. Every, lead change or, whatever, every movement that you want your horse to do is intentional.
Right. Well, we hope.
Right.
Yes.
That's the point.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
if
yeah.
it doesn't do it, that's out of our control. Just like
Sure.
if I shot an 8, which
Right.
I did. If it would have been a
Right,
7, he wouldn't have said anything. And
Yeah.
I would have known, okay. But in my mind, and in your mind, or being mentally tough in the arena, that horse did what you wanted it to.
Right.
Because if you think about what he didn't do, that, from what I understand, the horse is going to know that you're like,
Right.
ooh, I just goofed that up. But yeah, in my mind, if it's not where I want it to be, I don't want to know.
Right.
That's not the time or place.
So Nicole, I mean, what would be like? I mean, if you had to give three tips, let's say,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like, how do you start to condition yourself
Yes.
to go down that path where you're not influenced by outside conditions? Like, I mean, what are some of the things?
Yeah,
that you
excellent
recommend?
question. I will say I think I'm going to have to put a little caveat in here where it probably depends on when you're breaking in a horse versus you have a horse that you're
But we're talking.
training
Let's
to-
just say we're in the show pen, right? I mean,
Okay,
so that horse is
okay.
finished, should know his job.
Okay, good.
Yep,
Good,
and you're
good, 'cause
ready-
I
you're
would
ready
give
to
you
go
some
show it.
different stuff
Yes,
for
yes,
sure.
yeah.
But yeah, when you're there, so part of it's going to come down to how you're managing your own anxiety, nerves, whatever. We just call that kind of an emotional regulation because you're going to be a little bit nervous. You are there for a reason, you're there for a purpose, and you have to manage yourself. I like to use the terminology a lot where you can't control anything about your performance or your horse if you can't first control yourself.
Right.
And so recognizing what are your mental things that are happening and the physical things. So some people get butterflies, some people get sweaty palms, right? There's physical
Breathing.
things that happen and there's mental things. And so recognizing what's your baseline level and then what's the best way to regulate that. Not control it to the point where you let go of it and you're suppressing it in some way because we don't want to suppress it. You want to have some of those things because you know it's important to you. If you're not feeling a little bit nervous, then what the heck are you doing in the ring? Like, come
Right,
on. Like,
right.
it's got to mean something to you,
Yep.
but you're doing that in a controlled manner, right? So it's just a regulated manner is better terminology for it. So recognizing your level. And then if we take it, let's make it really simple. Scale of 1 to 10. Some people know they perform best at a level 7 of tension, of anxiety, or whatever you want to
Yes,
call it.
some people really
Some
call it that.
people want a 4. Some people, it doesn't matter. But if you know what level you want to be at, then there are strategies to train you to come up or to come down.
Okay.
Very few people need to go up. Most people need to come down. And so those strategies could be things like breathing, making sure you're
Huge
breathing
for me. Through
appropriately.
your nose, up through your mouth.
Right.
Yeah, so many people start breathing inappropriately when they get in those situations, which typically means they're breathing faster and from their chest.
Right.
And so they're not getting much oxygen. And again, your horse is feeling your energy. So
Right.
it's going to feel that. And so finding really good consistent breathing patterns. I could teach you about 100 of them. You can YouTube it and find all kinds of good breathing patterns,
Right.
but find what's going to work for you. It's not that one's better than another. It's finding the one that's going to work for you that helps you get to whatever that level is where you want to be. So breathing would be one. Some self-talk would be another. So what story are you telling yourself? Now, Lia and I've talked about this a lot. Like, you get to choose. So physiologically, the symptoms of anxiety and excitement are exactly the same. We release the exact same chemicals, hormones, transmitters. We release the exact same things in our bodies. What makes it different is our brains. It's, oh my gosh, this is a scary situation versus a, wow, this is exciting. This is cool. And so what story are you telling yourself about what you're feeling? And make sure you're using and narrating a story that's positive, that's productive. And again, there's no one right way to do this, which is why I'm being very generic about it.
Yeah.
It's what's your story? What language do you need to use to be in that space to say, let's do this, right? Throw down, we're going to do this today. We're going to, and if this happens, I've got a plan. I'm good.
Yes.
Which brings us to the third thing I'd say, which is confidence. And confidence isn't an all or nothing, it's an all or something. We're not all going to feel perfect confidence every single time we
Right.
show up, but you're going to figure out a way to be your best self in any circumstance. And that's confidence. And maybe if we take that on a scale of 1 to 10 as well, maybe sometimes it's a 3 for you, but how do you show up at 100% of that 3? You
Right.
want a 10, but you're just not there.
Yeah.
How do you show up 100% of that 3?
Right.
So those are the 3 things I would say, if you're going to kind of pin me down into
Yes.
3, is that the breathing, the self-talk, and the confidence.
So the confidence for me is knowing that when I shoot, every arrow has my complete attention when I'm shooting it. And I'm confident that I know exactly, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to shoot this arrow. Whether it goes where I want it to or not, at that point, once the arrow has left the bow, is irrelevant.
Right.
Then I can think about the next one.
Now, along these lines, does the superstition come into play? Right? Are you superstitious
Not
about
at
stuff
all.
like like a lot of guys say, they got to wear certain socks or the
Some
same
of our
underwear,
guys.
right? And if those things are not
Yep.
not following through, right? Like you forget a sock,
Absolutely.
then your whole your
That-
train wrecked, right?
Yeah, I think that is a really great topic for segment number 2.
That's a
Next
male
segment.
thing, by the way.
Oh, not
I
necessarily.
don't. The people I know, that's a guy thing for
Yeah.
sure. Maybe women in other
Women
sports.
have it too. Women
Yeah,
have
I
it
don't-
too.
I don't do
But
it.
let's hold this for segment number 2. Sound good?
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. That was segment number 1 on Cuss and Discuss Global Horse Network on mental toughness. We'll see you for segment 2.